Today we're going to be taking a look at Renfield, and the biggest reasons why you should go out and see this movie. Renfield has been serving Dracula for hundreds of years. He goes out into the world, kills people, and brings their bodies to Dracula so he can drink their blood. But secretly, all of these killings that he's been forced to do have been eating away at Renfield's conscience. So he decides to go to some group therapy meetings where he listens to stories of people who are survivors of domestic abuse and realizes himself that he too is in a toxic relationship that he has to get out of. His situation is a little bit different because he has to somehow confront the most powerful being in the world who is not going to let his servant just walk away freely. I was sold on this movie from the moment I saw the trailer. The premise of this was just so compelling. Taking the Dracula-Renfield relationship and using it as a vehicle to talk about domestic abuse and codependent relationships, I just thought it was fascinating and clever, and I'm so happy that the movie lived up to my expectations. And I just thought McKay directed the shit out of this movie. Because while it is addressing those very heavy and important themes, this movie is also just a total blast to watch. Right away, McKay pays homage to the 1931 film with a montage of Nicholas Hoult and Nick Cage reenacting that movie's most iconic scenes. And I loved every second of that. But overall, this movie just had so many things going for it. For most of the movie, it feels like a comedy that draws on the familiar beats of a fish out of water story. And you get a lot of humor when Renfield is out in the world trying to live his own life, doing simple and odd things like renovating his apartment or going to the spa. But it also feels like an over-the-top, bloody action movie, with Renfield using his super strength to rip people's arms and heads clean off. But of course, this is a Dracula movie, so it has elements of horror. There's some really well-directed scenes where Dracula is using his super speed to come in and out of the shadows and murder people. And there's a scene in this film that's probably going to end up being one of the most horrifying and traumatic scenes I'll see in a movie this year. But really, this movie wouldn't be nearly as entertaining if it weren't for the incredible performances we got from the cast. Nicholas Hoult was a perfect protagonist. You sympathize with his character because he's just a guy who's been in this abusive relationship for hundreds of years and can't admit it to himself. And he even struggles with things like Stockholm Syndrome. Nick Cage was just goddamn incredible. He was truly a jack of all trades in this movie, where he could be intimidating through brute force, but then be just as terrifying through the subtle and manipulative ways that he would talk to Renfield. But it's also Nick Cage, so he's doing these like little quirks and facial expressions that only he does that are so funny and make his character just really likable. Awkwafina plays a cop, and while I don't think that this is a special performance from her, she's still really good and really funny in the film. And Ben Schwartz. There's like a subplot in this movie involving a crime family that feels very Godfather. I think there's even a moment in this film where they actually play the Godfather theme, but he plays the son of the matriarch of the family, and he just plays a classic screw-up. He can't do anything right. He's always having to rely on other people, and the only reason why he is where he is because of his powerful parental figure. And all of those things that I described made me realize that this dude's just playing John Ralphio again. My one criticism is kind of a big one. I absolutely hated the last scene of this movie. I mentioned before that there's a scene that I thought was just truly horrifying, that was completely gut-wrenching, but the last scene in the movie betrays everything that happened in that scene, and they do it all to just make a joke. And the joke is funny, don't get me wrong, but I'd be lying if I said that it didn't annoy the shit out of me. But those are my biggest reasons why you should go out and see Renfield. If you happen to see it, let me know in the comments what you thought of it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.